There we go. All right, fantastic. Just wanted to make sure before I got started. Okay, so hello and welcome. We will start our programming in just a moment here. I am Anne Masoni, and on behalf of the Society for Photographic Education, who is hosting this event, welcome. SPE is a member-based organization. For those of you who aren't familiar with us, I'll be dropping our website in the chat window momentarily. Protocol reminders: as an attendance taking mechanism, please do put your name and email address in the chat window so that we can share with you directly in addition to social media posts. We've started you all out on mute so that the presenters can begin our meeting. I'm seeing that I'm unstable. I'm assuming that that means I just got crackly. All good?
A little bit.
We started on mute. We'll open up the meeting to the larger audience once they've completed their presentation. So please stay in mute until then. Once we wrap up our presentations, please do stick around so that we can have an informal conversation. We ask that you present your questions in the chat feature so that we can help facilitate the conversation, and I'll let you know when we're ready to begin populating the chat window with questions. In the meantime, we'll ask for attendance. We are, as I say this every week, we are establishing a way to move forward in this shifting time, and it is our belief here at FotoFika that we can do that together. So without further ado, John.
Hey, everybody. I'm John Fryer. I'm an associate professor of cross-disciplinary media at Virginia Commonwealth University. Welcome to FotoFika. We have a special guest today who I'm going to introduce as she gets connected to us. She had to kick her kid off of the Zoom account, so she'll be with us as soon as, something. In the meantime, one of the things I've been doing throughout FotoFika is going through things that we've been adding to the website. So I want to highlight some things that I know that Betsy's going to talk about. So I'm going to share my screen until Rebecca gets here and talk to you a little bit about what we've been doing and not doing, actually, in some ways. So that's Rebecca Barrett. That's not what we're looking at here. Oh, let me see here. Okay, so one of the things that we, the front page of the site and this project, FotoFika project, really came out of a post that Betsy made to Facebook. And it really became a rallying cry for ways that we could adapt the courses that were still underway in a way that was useful to our students and also in ways that wouldn't kill us, right? So that we have a few people that are still standing here as we approach the end of the semester, is a testament to, all the hard work you've been doing. And also, one of the things that we've been doing is, Betsy, Ann, and I I think we're like a teaching support group. We're constantly talking to each other about the concerns both about teaching, but also about our students. And that's why I'm really excited to bring Rebecca to the table and to bring a conversation, because if you remember on our front page, so this has been our front page since we started, and there was a bunch of resources that were being generated all at the same time that we started to list here. And Rebecca Barrett-Fox was one of the main things that we listed. And I think we've talked about it. I think I told her that we call it bad job. Like whenever we're doing, like we're expecting too much of our students or like not taking them into consideration, we have to bad job it. So it's really exciting to have her as a guest. She's also, that's not the only thing she's written. So she is an active blogger. She's writing about the issues of online education. She's writing about how to be, how to take our students into concern. So two of the essays, she's going to talk a little bit about that. The first essay which we shared, but she's also going to talk about some of the issues that she's been seeing and writing about with issues of privacy. And we as photographers and educators have this, we're used to being pretty close to things of a private nature with our students. Our students are making work about trauma. They're making work about their family. So it's kind of a complicated place that putting the technology into the class or into people's houses like really complicates that. So I'm really excited to have her here to talk to us. And is she connected? Do you know?
I am here. Yes, I am here.
Hey,
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks,
I'm saying nice things about you.
I've enjoyed eavesdropping on them. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I'm just gonna say, well, you know what? You're here. So,
Yeah.
and you're our guest. So if that's enough setup, I don't have to read your bio.
Sure.
I've just been following you, and your writings has been really, I refer to it quite often in terms of, when I'm on a committee, we just wrote a letter to our provosts and used, student feedback and examples. And I certainly referred the writers of that letter to your posts. So without further ado, Rebecca Barrett-Fox.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. John, thank you for the invitation. And it's a real treat for me to get to work with, or talk to you all as photographers, because I'm in a sociology program. And so what we do is very different, but I think in a lot of ways you all come having already done a lot of thinking about issues of privacy. Because so often what you're doing is asking students to be so vulnerable anyway. And then of course, there's a lot to do with photography, the ethics of journalism, and how do we record things, and the legal parts of that, right? So what you pick up, how you handle it. So you all are having those conversations in your classroom, I'm guessing, from the start photography classes, where it's a real advantage that you all have, because a lot of us have not thought about this at all. And in face-to-face classes, thinking about it gets done, but oftentimes it's done outside of the individual classroom. So we can go further. Or we don't have to think about questions of privacy because we're not asking them to share private information, or information might feel vulnerable in a 600-person lecture class for intro sociology or other lecture classes. So in smaller classes where people are sharing more kind of naturally, or where you're assigning things that require more self-reflection or or personal disclosure, you all already have some practice with that. So I'm grateful to have got to spend the last few days. John sent me some resources to tell me more about what you're doing, and so I've enjoyed that. Hold on a second. From my end, I got started with interest in this because I have been teaching solely online for 4 years. Sometimes I adjunct an in-person class just for fun, but my full-time position is online. And I made that switch voluntarily, but it wasn't because I loved online teaching. It was because of some other reasons that I wanted to go live other places than with my university. And I wanted to do research that I couldn't do with the typical university schedule. So I wouldn't say I was reluctant, but I probably was a little bit skeptical about how it was going to work. And then I very soon learned I was working with a different student population. And once I decided I wasn't going to be frustrated by that, right, I was going to embrace that. Then I really loved it, because what I found was I was working with students who they love the place where they are, or they're committed to the place where they are. And if they come, especially in Arkansas, so we are a public university, kind of mid-tier regional comprehensive university. When students come from rural Arkansas to the college town, sometimes it's hard for them to want to go back home. And that contributes to rural brain drain. It contributes to an urban-rural divide that changes the politics of where my university is. So I liked the idea of working with students who wanted to grow where they were planted, and already oftentimes were in careers that they cared about in places where they were supported. And so they actually are oftentimes very successful because they recognize they have a community, they have the resources they need, rather than transplanting them to a college where then we have to reinvent all those resources for them. They could say, look, I have, I have the access that I need. I have the, the family support that I need. I have the social support I need. Why would we interrupt that? Especially for my students who are oftentimes in this social welfare supporting type jobs. So that became really exciting. And once I started to see that, I saw I could really work with it in the classroom in ways that would be harder or were different than if students were located on campus, right? So now it can get really personal because my students are doing their work in the community they love. If we're doing research, they're going out and researching in their neighborhoods, in their churches, with their kids' Girl Scout troop, with their child's school. Whereas in a college town, we only have so many resources and we don't have close relationships. The students don't have close relationships with those places. Maybe the professors do, but the students don't. So it actually became a much richer learning experience than I was expecting. And I found it really satisfying, but it definitely then centers on the students. And because every student is someplace different, it starts to feel like it can feel like you're really teaching 20 different students in a class of 20. Which of course you always are, but it's especially true now. And so you get to know their hometowns, you get to know the resources they have. And so that's exciting, but it can be really draining. So when I saw my peers, I think, teachers were proud, and PhDs, right? We're overachievers. We were good at school. We like to lean in. And so when this announcement came that we're going to pivot to remote teaching, I saw a lot of my friends get really excited. A little bit panicked. I was probably a combination of panic. Maybe it was mostly panic, but they were trying to express it as excitement that they were going to do a great job here. So they, were going to jump in and, really nail it. And if underneath that is probably some recognition that the landscape of higher ed is going to be changing really quickly. So I think there's probably also a little competition to prove yourself to be a valuable team player who can deliver a good online class. So when decisions are being made this summer about program cuts and cuts, especially to precarious labor, but I just got an email this morning from a former grad student of mine. This is her second year in a tenure track job, and she was just cut. We know this is coming. It's nothing personal to her, and she knows that, but boy, this is going to be really hard. So I think maybe some of our enthusiasm for like doing a great job getting online might be some anxiety about that. Also because we're overachievers, also because we overfunction when we get scared. So all of those things, I think, could contribute to a person trying to do too much. But that's just a recipe for burnout. From a student end, typically when our students are taking online classes, they have learned how to be an online learner first, or if they're learning how to be an online learner, they start at the beginning. They don't start halfway through their junior year, or halfway through their second semester of their junior year. They don't take 6 courses at a time, 18 credit hours to figure it out. They have a learning curve too. I think about when you go to kindergarten, the first thing you learn isn't your ABCs and your colors. It's how to stand in a line, how to pee at certain times and not pee at other certain times, how to not eat glue where the other kids will see you do it. It's a socialization of it, how to get the teacher to like you, how to be a good student. And our students didn't get that opportunity right now. So you might have had a formerly really good student who just can't figure this out. And that's not because they're not trying. It's not because they're not smart. A lot of them actually could have taken their classes online and have chosen not to because they know that they stink at this, right? Or maybe they have previously taken it online and were like, ooh, that was not good for me. I better not try it again. And so to have all of that switched on them is overwhelming. And then of course, all of us are learning to do it at the same time, or most of us. Some of us have experience, but a lot of us haven't. And just imagine on the student end, if suddenly every professor who was teaching you had never taught before. Like, they've now got maybe 6 really great professors before who are now really 6 really lousy professors. So they would just be getting kind of a fire hose of poor experience. I say lousy. I don't think we have to do a lousy job. Of course, what I mean when I say do a bad job is don't fall for the bells and whistles. And we're getting, if your email is like mine, you're getting like 100 emails a day from ed tech companies promising you free services if you just try this. And that's tempting, but I think the good news for us is we have the pedagogy. If you've been teaching for a while, you've developed, or you're interested in teaching, you came with some pedagogical knowledge, some pedagogical experience, and that's what's going to pull us through. From the students' end of things, I have 3 children. That's why I was a little late for this meeting, because all 3 of them have Zoom meetings today with their teachers. And my high schooler has 6 classes, and I think is being asked to do work across like 18 different apps, and it's just too much. He spends at least 50% of his online learning time managing, logging into things and figuring out how to submit stuff. And so he's not really getting a rich educational experience. He's just getting a lot of tech practice logging in, memorizing logins, and figuring out how to use interfaces. And it's not a really good use of his time. And so when we do that to our students, they get frustrated too. There's a cognitive load that comes with that, and you know it if you are trying to teach across different platforms. And so it wears students out, but it wears us out too, So I became really concerned when I saw some of my friends, my colleagues really rushing to this. I just wanted to say, slow down, because we're gonna get burnout. So that was really my motivation for writing that big first blog post. And then the issues of privacy really followed very rapidly, because somehow I think we know that we have to think about privacy, but when we're in a hurry, it's one of the first things that falls away. But privacy, equity, and accessibility for all students, those are we have to do those things well. Like, you can record a lousy Zoom lecture, you can have, your hair can be disheveled, or your cat can walk through it. But if you are not protecting the classroom from Zoom bombing, if you're not making sure that students are not being asked to disclose private information that could be recorded by their peers, then you really are failing in a way that's unacceptable. I mean, we have to be gentle with ourselves if we've made those mistakes, but those are the things we have to do well.
That's great. I just want to add a little bit. I came to online kind of for a similar reason that you did. And there's several interesting conversations that I'd actually like to have one-on-one with you. But, and we've got some comments here. I don't know if we have any questions though, but I feel like it's a lot to think about. And I'm going to talk after John a little bit, or maybe I should talk before you, about some related issues as we go forward into this summer and not knowing what lies in the future for us. The bells and whistles thing resonates especially with me, I think. I have a little bit of it's not a vendetta, but I'm very, very, very suspicious of proprietary platforms and the solutions being found. The entrepreneurs are going to figure it out for us, right? Or the IT departments. And so I really appreciate you reminding us that we know as much as we think we should. We know, we're the teachers, right? And teachers don't know everything, of course, but we know more than I think we might think we do, especially going into a new platform, or a new format. Anyway, I didn't. Yeah. So thank you for that, John. I don't know if do you have any
Well, I mean, one of the things that I'm going to share my screen again, just because it's really kind of apropos of what Rebecca was talking about. So give me a second here. I hate when you do this because sometimes it makes everyone's screens go full screen. Where are we? All right. Okay. So the front page of FotoFika is now this post, and this is a post that Betsy Snyder wrote over the last 2 weeks, and it really is talking, and she can talk more about it, but I just wanted to point it out that this project started with this missive from Betsy to in the same way that Rebecca wrote this to her friends. Betsy wrote it to us and to her friends because we were all scrambling. So this is week 5 of FotoFika, but really it's week 6 because Betsy had her own kind of webinar on Zoom a week before our first FotoFika. And this post, as I was setting it and putting it together, I didn't write it, I just formatted it, really is the answer to her first post, which is, we've had 6 or 7 weeks of this, and depending on where you are in the country, what you're going to be, a lot of stuff is up in the air, and like we kind of have to start thinking about what our summers are going to look like, if there's online teaching in that, and what the fall will look like, because some of us are going to be back on campus, some of us are not, and there are schools that have already made those decisions. So I mean, I was in a faculty meeting where people were like, we don't teach our classes online. We can do it right now, but we can't do it ever again. And I would like to say we don't have to do it ever again, but I also think that there are some things that are good that have come out of this, right? There's a way that online education, and this is something I think we've talked about, and certainly I've talked about with Betsy, is that there's a format for online education that's very, it's very economically driven, it's very technology driven, and we're doing things as artists and as teachers in the makeshift space where we can record ourselves on Zoom and have that available, and you don't need a whole crew in order to produce that, and it's not something that goes into the vault to be replayed, because we can do it again in the coming semester. So we do. I think I want to let Betsy talk a little bit about this, because she's really in dialogue in terms of the same way that Rebecca is. So
Yeah.
and then we have an update on the trading cards that we'll end it with.
Okay. Thanks, John. Yeah, so this is a little bit of a blog post about my personal situation, which I've already mentioned, but I'm in the midst of it. I live with a bunch of college students, and I teach online and I teach in person. So I just feel like 24/7 of my life right now is thinking about these issues on a deeply personal level. But so I actually am going to read something that I wrote about this. Let's see if I can find it.
And do you want the screen up, or just
no, you can't. We can just show people. We can just look at each other.
Yeah, I'd rather see people.
So last night, in the middle of the night, my daughter's in Australia. She sent me a post from her class, which was Woody Guthrie's list of New Year's resolutions from 1943. It's astounding how it distills what's important, presumably what the most important things were to him. And I'll post it later. It's pretty beautiful. But it made me realize how lucky she's been to have such fantastic professors, and that this is how she's made it through COVID and her senior year. And then it highlighted my commitment to supporting faculty and how we push through this. And I think how important what we're doing right now is, and our positions. So It reinforced my commitment to supporting faculty as we push into unknown territory and face uncertainty and potential devaluation. And sadly, that's probably not potential. But there's a part of me that knows that higher education is something that's only available to a small percentage of the population. And at its worst, it's elitist and propagates and exacerbates the inequities in the world. But at its best, it disseminates knowledge, unleashes creativity, and empowers and nurtures ideas, and disrupts hierarchical structures. So this has more or less been always true, but I think we're at a point where it's kind of like the battle for the soil of education is at a critical point. And I think as artists and educators, we're in a really strong position to affect change in the right direction. But I think this depends on the decisions we make now and how we deal with this crisis. So in part, this means using our own experiences to develop understanding and empathy, but it also means stepping away from our own fears and disappointments. And that's kind of the main point of this. As I probably say every week, I'm dealing with my own very upper middle class disappointments of both my kids' graduations not happening, but stepping away from that or using that to create empathy and to make the right choices. But I think most of all, what we all have to kind of think about philosophically now is acting without fully knowing. And that's kind of what the points that I've been building about how we think about going forward in the summer and the fall, and the more philosophical, but also the more kind of really specific ways that we start thinking about designing classes or going forth as educators who might not even have jobs, and also as artists. So anyway, that's the kind of things that I'm really interested in, and I'm going to talk more about next week. Yeah. Anyway, I won't read the last bit, but that's the end of my my point for now. All right.
All right. Well, so Anne, we have time to go over the.
We have a little bit of time. What we're going to do is we're going to show something that we talked a little bit about last week. Then we're going to open up for questions, and there are questions beginning to roll in. Feel free to continue to populate the window with questions so that we can have those ready to go. But in the meantime, John.
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna open that screen back up, and let's see here. We figured I would be able to sort this out by now. Mm-hmm. All right, so here we go. So one of the things we talked about last week, we had an idea the week before when Becky Semp was with us, and the Center for Creative Photography has, obviously a huge collection of work, but they have, in particular, they have a few sets of Mike Mandel's baseball trading cards. So since we met last week, Anne and I and Tom, who you also met 2 weeks ago, have built kind of a front end for the trading cards. So it's just a Google form, and there's a request. It's specifically for, so that the idea of the trading cards is that it's for students, 2020, people that are graduating, students that are graduating in 2020. It's accessible to, I'll scroll down here, MFA, BFA, and BA students who are concentrating in photography. So it's a fairly wide open net. There's that we're using a trading card company that is affordable, that does pretty, I've seen different examples of what they've done, and they're fairly low resolution. So we've been beta testing it. And let me show you, let me see if I can copy this here. So this is the same text as on the Google form. We've had 3 students. There's 2 MFA students and a BFA student, and the image they submit gets essentially automatically turned into a trading card with these borders, and these are not completely finished yet. It's just a demo, so we could see what it looks like. And do you want to talk a little bit about like how this is going to work in terms of what we're going to do with them?
Yeah. So the way that we started thinking about this was that the BAs were kind of like our rookies, the BFAs were our minor leagues, our MFAs were our majors, and there's going to be an opportunity for an all-star crew as well. The way that this will happen is that we'll be sending out this form to you all to forward to your students. They will have the opportunity to fill that in. It's highly restricted in terms of content that they're able to share. And the idea is that that will be populated then into the structure that you're seeing before you. We have begun to ask several partner institutions that will create what we're calling our All-Stars. And this will be an opportunity for gallerists, curators, cultural institution, executive directors, and writers and theorists and critics to select from this large population of students, a group that we'll call our All-Stars, and those will have another sentence written about their work, not their own words, but from these critics about their work to be included on the back with the stats as well. The idea here is that all of those who determine to be a part of that group of curators, institutional, cultural, executive directors, etc., will all receive a copy of the playing cards as well as an uncut sheet of the playing cards to be in their permanent collection. So our students will have an incredible opportunity to both be, this opportunity for, recognition and a visual tangible of their lost thesis exhibitions, but also to be included in collections across the country. So, John, did I miss anything?
No, I mean, that's the basics. We're trying to basically, I mean, I think we actually, the reason we talked with Allison about the physical last week, and it's really important for our students to have a physical manifestation of their work because everything right now is in this virtual space. So, the idea is to have these things, work on this. We're going to work on it over the summer. There's no cost to the students at all. And we'll get them at the very least, a pack of trading cards. And we're also having the institutions will help pay for the idea is that institutions will help pay for more sets of cards. So yeah. So do you have anything, Betsy?
I actually have something to add based on some of the chat that's going on too. And I think there's a couple questions. And one is, someone said they call them prints. I think one of the things we want to emphasize is that the objectness, but also that these are not going to be precious in a way, that they are definitely going to be in the spirit of a trading card. And I don't mean Jackie Robinson rookie card. I mean, like, just, the cheap cards, the cards that don't have value. So that's one thing that I wanted to respond to. And then another was about the accessibility to buy them. We're still working on what that would be like exactly. But as John mentioned, we're going to try to make it possible for students to buy it. But they don't have to pay anything to be in it.
And our goal first was to get them this exposure and get them this celebratory act, and to get them while they're still technically students and responding to their campus email addresses to populate this now, as opposed to I think if we worked all the details out, we would be looking at a summer, launch. This provides us that opportunity. Margaret, to your question, I don't see why we can't do a BA/BS. I hadn't even thought about the fact that that's a degree shift from some institutions. So thank you for that. I will correct the form to be more inclusive. We had several questions that came up that were specifically for our guest. And so